So it's not actually, oh, well, hello. Have I been, I'm not going to start over. Okay. But I was feeling like I was projecting. Okay, so the line sort of dropped off the property notice, our property tax notice. Everybody received a property tax notice in the mail from Grand County. Thank you for sending that out with this proposed change. And so hopefully it's clear, what we're talking about is Moab City's line item on your property tax notice. So a few things. What we're looking at is re-implementing the property tax. We are considering a range from 0 to 3.3 million to be collected. The scenarios, just to help folks understand, were broken out in increments of from 0, which is current, 1 million, 1.52, and 3.3. 3.3 is the maximum amount that we notice to the state. So the state says, you want to raise taxes? Well, how high will you go? And so we're required to say our cap. So that was at the 3.3, and that was the amount that was noticed to you on your property tax notice that you received. Again, thank you to Grand County for sending that out. But this council is set to determine which amount above to act on following this public hearing at one of our regularly scheduled meetings here in August. So our next meeting is August 10th, and then following that is August 24th. I want to be clear again because there's been some confusion. This isn't like a whole new taxing world. Moab City is one of 12 taxing entities in Grand County. We're the only entity that's not currently levying a tax, as you saw on that first slide, the property notice slide. And that tax relief has been and will continue to be available through Grand County for residents who qualify in the form of being active duty or being a reserved part of the armed forces, blind, elderly, indigent, and low income, disabled veterans, and exempt status. So all of those continue to apply. And so there is a mechanism for those in need to be able to provide tax relief, not just for Moab City, but from all the other 11 taxing entities that show up on your property tax notice. We've talked about tourism, and I think we've all heard the phrase, 30 years ago, we just decided we were going to let the tourists pay for it, pay for the growth, and pay for the running of the city. So we just wanted to give a few points that we are taxing our visitors. So everybody that comes and spends money, they're taxed at the highest amount level available to us per the state of Utah. Property tax is something that we're considering because it can diversify our revenue sources if we find ourselves at a loss or reduction in visitation, like we did during the pandemic. That's why we're considering it, one of several reasons anyway. But, the industry that supports tourism doesn't contribute financially directly to community infrastructure and service needs, meaning hotels, vacation rentals don't pay a sales tax, the visitors do. So our visitors are paying, not our hotels. And then second, homeowners are also not paying. The property tax increase addresses the assertion that tourism should pay for its impacts for city services, as this would account for 74% of the collected property tax. So hopefully that's some information that's helpful when we think about having tourism pay for, all that we enjoy in our city. With respect to taxing, oh, wait, backwards. We went backwards. We're going backwards. We need to go forward. Other considerations that have been brought up, important to note, that reintroducing the property tax does give Moab City the ability to increase our bonding capacity to help address our long-term infrastructure project needs. We would receive better rates under better terms because we would have what would be better collateral, and we would be able to borrow more to address the 60 million plus in our infrastructure needs. Now, I know that there are lists going around of what we're looking at, the projects that are in need for our attention. But as we all know, you live in a house and then all of a sudden a pipe breaks and then you call a plumber and you have the plumber come fix it and then they say, you got a bigger problem than you thought. And when we did our 100 West infrastructure, we saw that we had a bigger problem than we thought. Also, we've been talking a lot about, how do we combine Moab City and Grand County? It just seems like there's a duplication of services. Well, the only way that we address that is a potential future annexation strategy, and where we talk about what controlled growth might look like. So, the implementation of a property tax is more than just a fiscal impact. It would allow the city to consider annexing pocket neighborhoods like Hecla and Holyoke and be able to provide a deeper level of service. It would open the door to expand our general plan's annexation boundary to have more control over water and growth in the valley. So these are conversations we're having, and we're saying, how are we going to solve them? How are we going to fix them? I'm not sure that property tax introduction is the solution, but it's something we're considering. And then also there have been some concerns about housing affordability and the effect that this might have on housing affordability. So we want to be really clear that if you have a long-term rental, it will still be taxed at the primary resident discount. So that means, that the tax increase isn't at the full amount like it is with commercial. It's only at the 55%. So it's less of an impact on renters. The increase in property tax doesn't affect the sales price of a home. We let the market do that. And that's where we're seeing the biggest impact of housing affordability in our community. Affordable housing projects that the city pursues should pay for themselves and not by the property tax dollars. This is something that we all talked about, that we were all very clear about as we moved into Walnut Lane, that wouldn't be something that would be on the burden of our taxpayers. Ben helped me come up with the dollar for dollar pass-through at the 3.3 at the highest level, that cap that I was talking about with the state, that would only amount to a 2.4% rent increase if landlords were to do a dollar for dollar increase. So you can kind of do the math of what that might mean. But that's kind of at par or possibly even less than what typical inflation might look like. So it's important to kind of know what that percentage is, what that proposed increase looks like. But again, that's at the highest 3.3. And this council has the option to be able to be somewhere in between 0 and 3.3. And then finally, it's ultimately the landlord's decision to pass through property tax or not. There's also been discussion about our revenue as we've been talking about our budget and feeling like we have all this money. So we did see a dip in revenue. We saw we saw our infrastructure crumble in 100 West. We saw a dip in revenue. We went through a pandemic. This has been a really difficult, almost 2 years for a lot of us. And so that's why this is, under consideration today by this council. I want to thank everybody for coming to speak because your input is very important and very valued to all of us. Like I said, the decision is set before this council for August. For our August meeting, we're going to notice it first on the 10th and then the 24th. We may or may not take action on the 10th, but that'll be the first time that we do notice it for action. And council, unless there's anything to add, we'll go ahead and move into this public hearing. Summer, is there a remote so we can just turn this off? Thank you. Ronnie?
Oh, Mayor, can I just ask one question? So obviously we know we have a lot of people out in the hall. So did you have any protocol that you were hoping for? Like as people speak here, would you like them to rotate?
Yeah. So, well, if we're ready to go ahead and move into it now, we've taped along the wall here where you can be 6 feet apart in line. So as you're interested in speaking, we can have a queue sort of set up to the podium. And I do ask that once you've made your comment, if you'd be willing to step out in the hall to provide somebody out there the opportunity to speak as well, then we can rotate in and out. This entire public hearing is broadcast on YouTube and is streaming so folks can watch live, but then is also going to be saved and you can go back and watch at any time. So if you don't hear a comment here or there, or you're really interested in what your neighbor has to say, you can always go back and watch. Once you've made your comment, there are wipes when you get up. If you want to wipe down the podium before you speak, you don't have to. But then once you do comment, if you'll just sign your name so that Summer, our recorder, can accurately document your name and associate it with your comment. And there are seats outside for folks, but again, it looks like we're probably okay in terms of the number of seats we have and our capacity that we're at right now. One other thing, I'm going to ask you to shoot for 2 minutes for your comments so that everyone can be heard tonight. So hopefully 2 minutes is enough time to be able to express yourself. And thank you for being here, and thanks for filling your time. And we'll get started, whoever is first. Who would like to go? Come on up.
I'm ready.
And then just state your name and then make
Dwight Johnston, my name.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you guys aren't inventing a new tax. You're just reapplying one that was used 30 years ago, but it still feels the same. It's just as painful as being a tax person. So you might as well just say you're implementing a new tax, because that's what you're doing. Every year in this town, it always goes up by a little bit by everybody, the school district, the county, the city, and they always give us this little chart. Oh, you have a home that's $300,000, that's only going to be $70 more a year. But it's every year after year after year, and it gets painful. The last time I've seen this many of my friends in a room was when I went to Sam's Club every single time, because that's where everybody in Moab shops, because that's where you can get good prices on stuff. But yeah, you guys are all opposed to a big store, because we're all above that. We're into the environment and renewable energy, and so we're going to keep the big boys out. That's where all the tax dollars are. So let's just keep Walmart and all those stores out, and then just raise all of our taxes through the roof to fund projects that are honestly ridiculous sometimes. I mean, the government gave you a swimming pool. You can't even manage that without overspending all of our money, and it's a free pool. So how do we expect, why would we think that you'll be able to manage building low-income housing without it being over budget and being on the backs of the taxpayers? The way to get low-income housing is to not raise the taxes on everybody that has a house, to not raise the fees, to let it to up the amount of units you get per acre. That's how you get affordable housing. And so I'm really discouraged with this government and what you propose to spend our money on, because you are spending our money. And so I hope that you'll give this some thought and not reintroduce another tax, because we don't need it. So thanks.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm going to ask everybody, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of agreement with others, but it's really important to me that everybody feels like it's a safe place to comment. So I'm just going to ask to please refrain from clapping. I don't think that it's going to create the kind of environment that we want to have in this chambers. So please do refrain from clapping. But I know that, folks support each other, so. Who's next? Michelle. Did he sign his name?
He didn't, but, I don't want to be a tattletale.
Summer. She's got it. Okay, welcome.
So I will say that comment about no clapping reminded me of being chastised for laughing at the dinner table. So, so my name is Michelle Blackburn, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Moab City families and businesses, and also for the Robertson Blackburn family, which is my personal family. Like our family, most of the founding families, their descendants live in Old Town Moab, and the people who were lucky enough to buy in over the last 80 years. So it's kind of a tight-knit community in Old Town. And many of us have more than one parcel. So
Michelle, hold on just one sec. Randy, go ahead and just take a seat. You fill it out after you speak. Thanks. Not a problem.
So it seems like our city government is targeting about half of the residents who happen to own a total of 2,841 parcels in order to come up with $3.3 million. City officials will say, oh, it's just the cost of doing business. But it feels personal. Moab's a small town. I think our estimate is 5,300 people right now. Despite our limited numbers of residents, our community is supposed to endure, support, and hopefully profit from 3 million visitors a year. So those 3 million annual visitors, and you put some slides up there to address that, but those annual visitors abuse every facet of our infrastructure and the surrounding landscape, and they increase the need for city compliance officers. So many of us living within the city limits are victims of that public invasion. And while we're not the perpetrators, our own representatives are wanting less than 2,500 people to pay more in order to mitigate this impact. I appreciate that you guys recognize the need. I appreciate that you are attempting to address that the inner city and its infrastructure has been neglected for decades, particularly our antique water lines. Really, really of concern. And there's been recent allusion to the presence of lead in small measurements. But I think that makes it a higher priority than some of these other wish lists. The need to improve water, sewer, and drainage infrastructure in Old Town Moab is completely obvious to anybody who's living downtown. And there's no doubt they're going to have to tear up the roadways in order to get to those pipes, necessitating resurfacing the roads when they close it back up. A rainy day fund seems less of a priority when you realize how few people are footing the bill for that cushion. It's really just a couple thousand people. So, and more law enforcement isn't necessarily beneficial to the year-round population. So basically, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. There have to be better avenues for funding relief than targeting a couple of thousand inner city dwellers. They're landowners. There's not that many of them. So if the council is determined to satisfy the city government's $3.3 million wish list, please consider looking elsewhere, whether it's grants or some visitor-related funds. There just has to be a way to meet these needs without burdening a relatively small number of residents.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign your name. Thank you so much. Welcome, Debbie.
Hello and good evening, and thank you guys for letting me have this opportunity to speak. I don't get up often in front of people, so bear with me. I come to you as not only the Grand County Assessor, but as a citizen of the city of Moab. I spoke with Ben and a couple of commissioners yesterday, but I felt the need to address all of you and ask for your consideration in the ramifications of this if you pass this tax for this year. If it passes, the same folks in the residential areas will be reappraised next year, which means their values will increase as it did the ones in District 2 for this year. It will most likely result in a significant increase in their assessed values. I'm concerned most for the elderly residents, the lower income, the single parents that live here, and our struggling workforce, and the people with the rentals that are going to be hit the hardest with this tax increase this year and the upcoming increase the following year. Landlords will pass that increase to renters, who will bear the heavy burden with the high market rents that they currently pay, due in part to the lack of affordable housing. Many may not be able to bear the burden, and we as a community will suffer a big loss if they are forced to leave Moab. I don't pretend to know the answers. I don't understand all of this, and I know it will be tough for all of you. However, I do hear the effect of raising taxes every day in my job. I have the people in my office all the time. I truly believe it's time to tighten our budgets and figure something else out and work for what's best for our fellow citizens and the part of our community and the people that actually live here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, settle down. Who's next? Oh, either one. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Robert Tupak. My family's lived here for 21 years. You know, we've all heard this rhetoric for years about bringing in more tourism and it's going to pay for everything for us. Well, it's really not happening. Our town is slowly being ruined by this. You know, I second what everybody else said, and I actually think that, you know, we live here, it's our primary residence, and it's our home, we raised our family here. It's not an overnight rental or a second or third home for us. And everybody always overlooks the other ramification or residual results from a tax increase when so few are bearing the burden. Why are the people that this is their primary residence, they raise their family here, why are we being the scapegoats and being penalized for being taxed with the increase in tourism, which has caused this? I mean, of course, it's third grade mentality to know that search and rescue, you're going to need more if you have more tourists, and you're going to need more police officers. But then they overlook the other problem is, look at our hospital and our police. There's ads out there for people, for jobs, good paying jobs, and they can't afford to live here. So in another result, during a pandemic, when everybody's suffering a little bit, now is the time to institute a property tax on so few. It just doesn't make sense. And then you think of, like I say, you never think of the other ramifications. Businesses, they'll get a property tax. What do they pass it on to? They raise their prices. People that work in town that lease an office space, their prices will go up. We're already in a tourist town where the locals are penalized for higher gas, water, and food, basic necessities of life. It just doesn't make any sense. And like I say again, we all went through, we're in this pandemic together. Why are the local people that raise their family here being penalized with another property tax. I agree with everybody else that spoke. They're hurting, and there's other avenues to raise this money. Sure, our sidewalks are crumbling and everything, and we've heard the rhetoric for years that the tourism, we bring in more tourists, they're going to pay for all this stuff. Well, that was a fallacy. I mean, you know, the definition of a rhetoric is it's a rhetoric is the art of persuasion through communication that we've heard for years and years that appeals to people's emotions. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Robert. Please don't forget to fill your name out. Thank you so much. Welcome.
My name's Maggie Johnston. Oh, that's loud. I'm not a very eloquent public speaker, so I'll try to keep this brief. I personally found the city's presentation to be a little bit misleading. I work in the real estate industry here, and so I deal every day with the prices in Moab. The city may not affect what things sell for, but they certainly affect people's payments. I saw an article from KSL last month that said that the median housing price in Utah increased 30% from June 2020 to June 2021. So the city may not affect what things sell for, but they certainly affect what people pay. I would also like to address the city's dip in revenue. I understand that that was probably a struggle, but I would also like the city to consider that in one way or another, we all had a dip in revenue this year. Unfortunately, COVID really hit us all hard. And I think all of us have had to just kind of buckle down and tighten up, and that's exactly what we're asking the city to do, is not pass their dip in revenue onto all of us who have already had a dip in revenue. So that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you so much for your comments. Elena?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to let us all talk and be heard. I have mainly questions. It's not so much hearing. I have a few questions because to me it seems as if it's definitely a budget issue. Just overall, the state of Utah between 2018 and 2019 received $294 million more in property tax. That's the whole state. And you just wonder, from one year to another, $294 million. That's a lot of money that you can do stuff with. It's just a question of the budget. Where does all this money go? So I have a couple of questions in particular here for the city of Moab. In one of your documents, you're saying that Moab is only one of 4 other towns in the state of Utah that does not levy a general property tax to pay for city services. So the question that I have is, do the other cities, the ones with a higher tax rate, collect as much in sales, transient room, and resort community tax as Moab? The tax rate change to 0% was made in 1992, and the city was able to balance its budget then, obviously, because they made the decision of reducing the tax rate to 0%. Since then, the influx in tourism, especially in the last few years, also significantly increased the amounts of sales and use tax the city collects. So the question here is, what has changed so drastically that the city is no longer able to balance its budget despite the collection of the increased amounts of received portions of sales and use taxes? Despite the current travel restrictions, because you also mentioned the pandemic is one of the reasons, despite the current travel restrictions in 2021, Moab has experienced a significant increase in tourism over the previous years. Even in 2020, businesses reported higher business than in previous years. All new record numbers that surely have also increased the amounts of tax received by the city. So why is the city considering to increase the property tax rate now, when we already have other issues? As one of the main reasons for the consideration of the increase in city property tax, the city mentions the need for more law enforcement. According to census numbers, the population of Moab has grown by approximately 600 people in the last 20 years. Cities with fewer than 10,000 residents report an average of 3.5 officers per 1,000 inhabitants. Based on the 600 additional residents, it would possibly explain a need for 2 extra law enforcement officers. What else is the city in need of extraordinary in cost compared to the previous years? And again, that's just in response to the business. So of course, if tourism has the consequences of higher demands for extra law enforcement, would it not make sense to get funded through the collected TRT, which are in direct correlation to the challenge our local law enforcement faces? So here would be the question, could the city council potentially try a little bit harder to get more money from the state, as it was their initiation to get more tourism down to Moab to begin with their fantastic campaign of the Mighty Five. And then I have a few questions in regards to the capital improvements project list.
So you know you are far past the 2 minutes, so.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm sure if you had only half a minute or a minute, so I'm sure in terms of time management, we're in budget. There are a few on here where I'm just not sure, potentially more details on the 100 South Green Infrastructure Improvement Project for $1.9 million, 400 East construction, $1.7 million, water tank, $3.4 million, 100 West construction, $1.2 million, hotspot median parking, 6.765, that's 6.7 million. Swanee and Lions Park upgrade, 300,000, doesn't sound like a lot, but Lions Park, I believe, was pretty brand new. South Trunk, it said. I don't really know what that means.
So I appreciate all of your comments, but I do have to ask you to wrap up.
All right. Well, overall, it seems to me as if there's a budget question of, especially being a property owner here in town, where there are just expenses that reoccur, streets are being opened up repetitively. I just think that we could potentially tighten up the budget a little bit more and postpone the tax increase.
Thank you.
Thank
you for your comments. And I do want to remind everyone, I'm hoping that everyone can consolidate their comments to 2 minutes so that everyone else gets a chance to comment. Rachel?
Hello.
Hi.
Familiar faces.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I wanted to come tonight to speak about property tax because serving the city for 22 years, property tax has been talked about throughout the years. I did want to point out for the public that the previous council, before this council, some of the elected officials that served on that council served on the same council that eliminated property tax in 1992. And conversations over the past 10 to 15 years were that it was inevitable that property tax was coming back. So it's unfortunate that those members are not here tonight to be able to speak to the public, to give some of the reason and logic behind why it was dropped in 1992 and not just lowered instead of taken to a zero assessment. But that's off my script, and I'm going to try to stick to my 2 minutes. I've lived in Moab for 27 years, and I served the city as an appointed official for 22 of those years. And I appreciate the time and effort the staff and the governing body have put into exploring a property tax. I know firsthand the complexity of the financial demands facing the city. While I support a property tax, I'm here to voice my opinion on the proposed uses of that tax. I am opposed to using local property tax revenue to pay for tourism-related impacts. I feel that using property tax dollars for public safety services would do just that. As we've read in the local papers, the city and county have both seen substantial increases in sales-based tax revenue this last year as our visitation increased dramatically during COVID. Of course, as visitation goes up, both sales-based tax revenue and demand on city services go up, specifically public safety, among others. Paying for the impact of tourist services with tourist-generated tax dollars makes good fiscal sense. If visitation drops, then revenue drops, and city service levels can also drop, reducing a potential budget deficit. I also have some concerns regarding the city's proposal to use property tax for the rainy day or reserve fund. For years, the city consistently maintained the rainy day reserve fund at the state allowed maximum. It's only recently been depleted. For the city's 2022 tentative budget, the state would allow a total of 35% of general fund revenue in a rainy day reserve fund. That would be about $4.4 million. There's already a balance in that rainy day fund, but I didn't see anything in the information tonight that said what that was. Once that target is reached, would that portion of the property taxation be reduced or reallocated? And if so, to what projects or goals? In the last 2 decades, visitation to Moab has grown every year. City revenue has also grown every year, and consequently, city staffing levels have also grown. What hasn't grown is our funding of capital road projects. As you know, real estate prices in Moab are soaring faster than we can track. While primary residents are not taxed at 100% of value, commercial properties are. We know that tourist-related businesses have also experienced a dramatic increase in revenue this past COVID year, since the city's sales tax revenue is collected as a percentage of those businesses' sales. But what about the small businesses in town that aren't reliant on the tourism base? They are also assessed at 100% of value, but may experience little or no increase in revenue during visitation upswings. Businesses like office supply stores, beauty salons, dentists, copy centers will have to increase their prices to pass the property taxes on to customers who are largely local residents. My opinion is that if you are asking local residents and businesses to start paying a property tax, then those dollars should be dedicated to a resource that our residents and businesses use year-round, regardless of tourism, which is our roads. The miles of roads our city has is the same if we have 2 million visitors per year or a year-round population of 7,000. And anyone who has driven on our roads knows that they are in dire need of not only repair but rehabilitation. Enterprise services, water, sewer, and stormwater have user fees that can be adjusted to pay for operations, maintenance, and infrastructure. Property taxes can't be used for those services. And that is my understanding last time I checked state code. It's possible that has changed, but I think they can only be granted loans from the general fund. Property taxes can't support those services. Roads have no user fees, and in fact, the highway tax collected in the general fund covers the street's operations budget with not much to spare. Class C road and transportation tax cover one major maintenance project per year and several smaller projects, and that's it. In 21 years as purchasing agent, the city completed less than 6 major road projects, and we paid cash for those. By the time the city prioritizes a critical road as a capital project, it ends up being a total rebuild because many of our roads are held together only by crack and chip seal. On July 19, 2019, the City Council approved contracting with RB&G Engineering for $24,450 to develop a comprehensive road improvement plan, including working with city staff to create a prioritization and a street rehab maintenance plan for future budgeting needs. This contract order also included the creation of a 5- and 10-year capital improvement plan for city streets. What I am requesting as a citizen of the council and mayor is to present that city street improvement plans to the public in tandem with the proposed property tax and show us how many roads you will rehabilitate for the increased price that you are asking citizens and business owners to pay for living and working in Moab. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. What was that? Thanks, Rachel. Who's next? And I really do want to encourage everyone to please stick to the 2 minutes. If you hear a little sign, signal over here, and it sounds like a cell phone, that's your 2-minute mark. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kay Osteen. I've served this county and this area for more than 50 years, giving my time. And a lot of it was donated. Now, I've watched over the years how the taxes come up, and nothing is a bit concerned about those who live here. All I hear is, build this, build that, all for tourism, and then put the bill on us who live here. And after a while, I get the feeling that because I'm a senior citizen, you'd like to get rid of us. We can't keep paying taxes that are outrageous and not you guys managing things better. We need help. And with the epidemic, people can't even get work, some of them. Businesses have not gotten back to where they need to be so that we could even pass any of this on to them. You gotta help us out. We can't keep loading everything. There's not that many of us in this town anymore. Not young ones, not old ones. And everything you do makes people feel they're not wanted. All that you want is to build another condo, another motel, and ruin our whole community.
Thank you for your comments. Next. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Tamela Johnson, and I am a transplant to Moab, but my husband and his parents both, or all of them, have been raised and born here in Moab back to the 1800s. So we have a vested interest in our town. I also am a teacher at HMK, and I have been privileged to sit in on interviewing new candidates for teachers and positions. And one of the questions we always ask is, have you checked into housing? To make sure that they can afford what they're being paid with where they're going to live. And I know personally someone that came with a budget of $600,000 to find a house for his large family and could not find something for that amount for them. So, and I believe most of you ran on the docket of affordable housing. How is raising taxes achieving that goal for you and for our community? Also, I'm glad I'm not wearing a mask right now because I want you to read my lips. No new taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Randy, welcome. She might have stole your line.
I agree. I agree. Okay, with that being said, I just want to let you know I'm coming from the real estate side of things. And if I was to walk into this as a business, first thing I'd look at is how many people are sitting here being paid that really I don't need, okay? And I'd be taking that into consideration as I do it. I was here 1972, lived in Walnut Lane Trailer Park, loved it. Great spot to grow up. The orchards were full of trees and all of that happened. And I'm not going to go into that, but I do know what's going to happen. What's already happened, what I told you was going to happen before you ran for mayor. Our affordable housing is a crisis, and it was 10 years ago, and it was 15 years ago, and we saw it coming. Yet every time you come to do a development, and I can speak to the last one I saw in 4th East where they wanted to do apartments, and nobody wanted it. It should have been built. It should be built right now. The one I tried to do over here behind the Wendy's, that now they're going up with a building to help the mental health. That's wonderful, but that should have been housing. We've got lots of plots of land that we should have been building housing. You can't develop your own trailer park that the city bought because of your ordinances. You can't do it. I've read the ordinances and I see it. If you get to do it, guess who's coming to your door? I'm going to do the next one. And if you don't let me, then we're all going to go to war and you're going to need that Miss Attorney over there. Because this is what's happening. If you will build the middle, the top will take care of itself and the bottom will come up. We're paying $400,000 for homes on Walker and Tusher and down next to the sloughs we used to call it. You call it Scotlands and Mathis Wetlands now. That's a nice name for the sloughs, but it's not. It should have been rehabilitated into land to build on, and it's not. We need land. You got, let's say, 5% in this county of private land, and the city's even smaller. I've preached an aggressive annexation policy all the way out to Blue Hill. Take it out there. Buy out the county's water and sewer and run it. And let's get this thing going. One police department's all we need, and that should be a constable and a sheriff. We don't need all this extra stuff. And the tourism was the business we chose in 90, because in 85, there was nothing. 86, 87, I was here. I sold real estate then, I remember. And we need to create more avenues for development to do that. I want to do it. But I've been to this council and I've been to the county and I know what's happening. And I see it. Our prices keep going up because there's lack of demand. A lot of demand, no supply. I appreciate your efforts, but going for a property tax at this setting, you could create that by changing your zoning. You could create that by changing your zoning and allowing more development to happen. It would change your zoning, would give you the tax increase you need, and I wouldn't have to give my renters an increase because of my taxes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Fill your name out. Don't forget your name. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Dan Stenta. I moved to Moab 22 years ago. As many of you know, I worked for the city for 5 years as the city engineer and have a lot of familiarity with infrastructure projects and that sort of thing, as that's my line of work. I'm actually going to buck the trend and say that I support a property tax because I feel like it's fiscally irresponsible to throw all our eggs in one basket. And I have, at the time that I worked for the city, I advocated at the time that we pass a property tax of some sort so that we could work on picking away at infrastructure projects. That being said, I would like to reiterate my wife Rachel's opinion that taxes work best when they're providing the service to the people that are paying the tax. In my 22 years here, I've been lucky enough to encounter a need for the police department twice. Once, they pulled me over for having an expired registration, which I paid. And the other time, I filed a report because there was some vandalism done on my property, which never went anywhere. Every single day, I use the roads in this town. I use our sewer and water system. I use our sidewalks, our parks. Every single day, I use those. So I would like to see the money go towards things that we that live here are going to get use out of. The rainy day fund, that's what it's supposed to be, a rainy day fund. That's where you're supposed to put the surplus revenue that you brought in, that you came in a little over what you budgeted, and plug in that thing. It's not something to like pass a new tax to build up because you expended it all. I came in to the building department representing a client a couple years ago. I'll just finish the story quickly. Who had a single lot in the neighborhood up behind here, which is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Moab. The oldest homes in Moab, some of them approaching 100 years, are over there in the 200 North, 300 North area. So this person had a lot there that had been a lot of record for a long time. They needed to get sewer and water service, and we were looking at $100,000 plus to rectify all the issues with getting water and sewer service there, fixing the street, doing all that, in order for them to build a single-family residence of about 1,000 square feet, which is ostensibly what this council has said that they want to support. At the same time, I would go by every day and see a $1.5 million sewer project that we borrowed money to build that was providing sewer service to the new World Mark and the Holiday Inn and the camp park out there. And there seemed like a huge disconnect between priorities over what we were spending our money on, what we were saying we were prioritizing, and where the money was actually going. And I would like to know and have some level of confidence that if this tax goes in, one, I think it should be phased in gradually, and two, there needs to be some belt tightening on the part of the city council, and these projects can't be Cadillacs. They have to be functional, and they have to be done more efficiently than they're being done.
Thank you,
my
Dan.
time's up, I'll finish there.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi there, my name is Kyle Kaiser. I'm a rental property owner in town, and during the intro of this, I heard some things about the pass-through rate. Mayor Newhouse, could you refresh me on what that rate was determined to be?
0.5%.
What was it?
2.4.
2.4. So and then you mentioned that's about equal with inflation. Most rental property owners are generally going to increase their rent to match inflation over time, just a little bit each year, so you don't hit a tenant with a really big jump all of a sudden. If you keep pace with inflation, which as of July is over 5%, and pass that on to the tenants along with the new property taxes, if someone's rent is $1,000, you're increasing their rent by $50 every month, $600 a year. If their rent is $2,000, you're looking at increasing their total rent budget for the year by $1,200. So I just wanted to kind of bring attention to the effects that does have, because, the properties I own have to operate on real-world finances, their loans and things, and I have to keep pace with those factors. So it does affect how affordable it is for people who have to rent here. And it also does affect people's ability to get a mortgage and how much they can purchase on a house. If you buy it outright, it doesn't matter, but if you have to apply for a mortgage to purchase a home, the property taxes are included as part of that mortgage, and so you have to qualify for that. So it does affect people's ability to pay for a home. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, you got to sign your name for us, please.
Oh.
Thank you.
Kyle.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Aaron Davies. Make sure I can read the notes I wrote. Well, I think the overriding perspective I have of this is that this seems very contrary to a stated goal I understand you all have had to have more affordable housing. Property tax is, of course, directed exactly to homes. That's the thing it's directed toward. 100% contrary. I've never heard anyone speak to how you're justifying this contrary action to say you're in favor of affordable housing, yet this action is making housing more unaffordable. The real issue on making housing more affordable is having more houses. It's real simple economics, supply and demand. The demand is high. We can talk about things we're not happy about why it's high, but the bottom line is if we can increase the supply, the price will go down. Simple economics, which means we need more support to approve projects so that we can increase the housing. It would solve that problem, which, by the way, will also help the police department. That seems to be the biggest issue. Not so much they need to get paid more, but they need to have housing they can afford, along with teachers and other professionals. Yeah, I think it's 92, 93 the decision was made to switch to just sales tax, and it's been working ever since then. From what I can tell, 5 years before pandemic, spending increased about 60%. It's about the 5 years before, 60% increase in spending. Revenue increased almost 50% during that time. So revenue has been increasing, yet spending has outpaced even that enormous increase. I mean, if a business had that kind of increase, they'd be very happy to have that kind of increase going on in their business. Talked about capital improvements not being done recently. Well, in fact, of course, there have been, but what we have seen, really 2 minutes? What we have seen is projects were funded that I would consider more the fun things people enjoy. Well, that 2 minutes went very fast. Let me see what I can Of course, the staffing has increased. Over 30 people on staff making over $100,000 a year. That's quite a bit more than most citizens. I think it's 50. People are making over $90,000 a year. Staffing went from 60 to 72 people. Government has increased. That's part of the 60% increase in spending. Is that really needed? And maybe that's where the tough decisions, it's a hard thing, I can imagine. I've been on a teeny little town council in Castle Valley. Even there I knew it was hard. It's hard to make budget choices. It's the hard work. But that's what people volunteer for when they decide to sit up here. And I appreciate it's a hard job, but that's where I think the effort needs to be made. We'll point out there's a little sticking point here. You've given the presentation of where the money could be spent. There's no obligation for that money to be spent on anything that you have said it could be spent on, which means that the public has to trust that you'll do what you have said. And of course, I think half of you are not going to be here, if I understand what people have proposed their future is going to be. But since decisions have not been made in the last few years for these capital improvement projects, yet spending has happened, then I wonder, is that really going to happen? Are the tough decisions going to be made in the future when maybe they haven't been made in the recent past? Bottom line, it comes to a philosophy of government. Should government be big or should government be small? The Moab city government has grown hugely in the last few years. To call us a little town is just not accurate. Budget of $13 million, that is not a little town. I've lived in little towns, not just Castle Valley, but other little towns. Now, I think we had a budget of $200,000 or something when I was on the council. Yeah, this is not a little town. $13 million budget, that's a city. We have a budget bigger than cities that are near 20,000 people. Now, I understand there's some reasons why. Ultimately, I've just ask you to make the tough decision. I get that it's hard, but somehow I think it means cutting back on the expenses and choosing these things that you say are important, choosing those things now, rather than asking us as taxpayers to pay more money. It's going to hurt a lot of people. There are ways to make decisions that can benefit us without raising taxes. 3 years in a row we'll have tax increases. Last year, the recreation tax, this year, and of course next year, as it's been pointed out, this tax will increase. That's 3 years in a row, overlapping in the pandemic, to have a tax increase. That's not right. It's not right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so please, I do ask that you not clap so that everyone feels like their comments are welcome. I just want to give a shout to anyone that's in the hallway that there are chairs available. Will somebody let folks know out there that there are chairs available? And I appreciate people moving out to allow others in. Are there more in the hallway? I just can't see. So if Joe, will you go out there and tell people to come on in and sit for me, please? Thank you so much, and welcome. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hi. Whoa. Paige Holland. Lifelong resident, own property. We've had rentals in this town for over 45 years. I'm confused on some of the numbers that were tossed out. First of all, this 74% would be collected from property taxes from second homes. Does that mean that 74% of the housing in the city is owned by second home owners?
No.
Okay, that needs a little clarification. I have no choice but to raise rent. I do my best to keep my rents at a level that people can afford, and I'm shocked at the levels of, you know, the housing that I see, the rents coming in, that they're pushing up to $1,800, $2,000 for modest homes. It's outrageous. I do my best to keep renters for long term and to have a social contract with them that we're going to do our best by you, but you can't expect property owners just go, oh no, I like the city, I'm just going to absorb these taxes. That's not going to happen. So what you're impacting is every single renter in this town. So do I get a rebate if I rent to people who are 65 and older or are veterans? I doubt it. Is there any mechanism for the renters in there? Okay, then you're saying that if somebody owns 1 acre or more of land in this city, that's going to be taxed at 100%. That pretty much guarantees that every single family that has been in here, this town, for decades, generations, is looking at 100% valuation as opposed to the 44 or whatever it is that you say it is, 55. And it just pressures people to carve up land, even though every single visioning process that we've had for a master plan, that people in this town and county value the open spaces. Why do we even put money into those visioning processes? Because they don't really affect any of the zoning laws or any of the policies that I've seen come down in the city or the county when it comes to housing. I think you guys need to get a lot more creative on where you can come up with money. What about a toll road? Cane Creek, Sandflats, you own the land? What about the police car that's sitting at Denny's all the time? Put a flashing light in an empty police car. You don't have to pay the officers. It just sends the same signal. We enforce laws. I think the impact fees for the new hotels, you stated in some of your documentation that the impact fees that you collected for all these brand new hotels who aren't owned by locals, by the way, they're owned by huge corporations that don't live here. Those impact fees aren't enough for the impacts that the hotels are bringing. You're just looking for more development down the road, which will make up the difference at impact fees that are still too low. Where is the sense in this? We have people in this room making $100,000 or more, 90,000 or more on your staff, just as Aaron said. I'm beginning to wonder what we're really paying for. If we're paying that kind of money, we need people who have minds who can really work on this and not just go, yeah, hey, here's an easy revenue source. How many of you have ever owned a private business? Any of you? Have you ever really had to go, you know what? We're not making that revenue. We can't spend what we would like to do. I just think that there are other ways to do this, and I think you need to tighten the budget. The TRT advertising. Counter that big mighty 5 ad. Moab enforces the laws. How about that one? Let's put that one out to the world. We expect visitors to behave. Let's promote art events. They're a whole lot less impact than razors. I mean, there are other ways to really creatively solve these problems, except the easy fruit, the low-hanging fruit, tax the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm happy to bring a chair, to have us bring a chair so she can sit for comments. You're fine? Okay. Welcome, Mona.
Hi, everybody. My name's Mona, and this is my first time here. I'm supposed to talk into this little gadget. Ooh. So, I have to read this because sometimes my memory isn't that great. Can you all hear me? So, in the nearly 30 years that I've lived in Moab, I confess that I've never really become involved in the local politics. But some of the decisions that are being made glaringly wrong, that I want to make a statement. I have noticed over the years that no matter what citizens want here, doesn't matter. The council do exactly what they want. So let's take the Bike Skills Park, for example. It's for our children, I heard. But the children ride the streets of Moab to their friends, to their schools, to Anonymous Park. I doubt that you'll ever hear any of them say that they want to go to the Bike Skill Park. But now it's on the budget. So over the years, everything that the locals enjoy here has disappeared. The biggest loss, in my opinion, is the Saturday morning farmers market. The locals in Moab are treated as second-class citizens. Tourists come first. That's wrong, in my opinion. This is our town, not theirs. So stop treating us like children as if you know best. And maybe some of you do. But on all major issues, especially the property tax, the citizens should have a vote on who pays it, because you raise my taxes, I'll raise the cost of my house, and pretty soon you won't be able to afford it.
Calm down, Mom.
Calm down, I'm getting excited. The future of Moab rests in the decisions that are made today. So if you need you're all very young. I see that you're all very young. Yes, all of you are young. I am 96. Hell, I don't know how that happened. Anyway, I was hoping that you would listen to the citizens, the ones that hold this community together, the ones that voted for all you folks, before Moab is lost forever to the lure of the almighty dollar. Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you. Yes, you do. Thank you so much. Mark, are you speaking or just here? Okay. No. Thank you for your comments. Welcome, Cricket.
Hi. I'm Cricket Green, and I have more questions than answers. Some of the things that are my questions are, we're talking about how bad we did in COVID and how much money did you guys get in disaster money and where did that go? And then we rebounded in October or September. We had our busiest months ever July, ever August, ever September. Crazy in October. So I know sales tax are up. Every business that I've talked to this year, be it a store, like a knick-knack store, or a restaurant, every one of them said they're outdoing their numbers ever. That's sales tax. That means you guys' revenue went up. So why we need this, I don't know. Well, maybe we need this because we're spending money where we don't need to be, like a lobbyist. How much did that cost? Plus, I personally met with a city engineering company hired by Moab City to create a pocket community at the end of Center Street, which they already have access off Rose Tree Lane. I asked, did Rose Tree residents be involved? No, because they want to force East Center into involving. And for why? Well, I was told to build something for community rebuilds. And Moab City hired that engineering company. We're spending money where we don't need to be. We should be spending money on things that help our citizens, our infrastructure, and less on our wages. Oh my gosh. Do you know how many years I worked for a title company before I ever made $30,000? I worked my butt off. You guys make a lot of money for a lot less work than I've done over the years. And what really gets me is every time I've brought up the fact that you're considering adding property tax, I have been called Chicken Little. So evidently, I'm not Chicken Little anymore. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I have 3 topics that kind of piggyback everything else, so I'll just probably be pretty quick. First one is buy local. That's going to be kind of hard. It's easier to do it by Amazon with free shipping. The next one is the high school. I was here, starting to work here in the early 80s, and realized they graduated about 100 students, anywhere between 80 and 100. They're still, how many years later, still graduating that many kids, between 80 and 100 kids. So in other words, the locals and the local service, the people that live here, you know, we're not growing. The things that's growing is tourism, and we're paying for that. Third one is probably a really unfriendly comment, but I'm going to say it anyway, is Walmart. As far as Walmart goes, we really don't want to, and I'm not saying I want Walmart here, I'm not saying I don't want it here, but the mistake that St. George made was they refused to let Walmart come into their community. And so Walmart went to the other side of the county and put a Walmart in. Guess who shops at Walmart? St. George. Not only that, but they were so successful and so popular that they ended up putting another Walmart in on the other side of the county. So guess who continues to shop at Walmart? Walmart is smart. They do their research. They know where their customers come from. They would not want to put one in Moab unless they've tracked us. We've been tracked. So basically, you know, I'm piggybacking on what everybody else basically has brought up as information. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Hi. I'm Eric Wolf. I'm new here. Thought I'd let everybody else go first. I've spent the past 20 years traveling around the country, oddly enough, working on public infrastructure projects and doing defense projects to keep the nation safe. In those travels, I have witnessed many of our most beautiful small towns become uber gentrified, Californication, vilification, whatever you want to call it. What you're proposing to do by putting a burden on the residences and 100% local businesses here is the first step in that process. And once you go down that road, it can't be reversed. You will destroy what this town is. I've wanted to be here for 20 years. I came here to settle. I started at search and rescue. I've done it before. I don't even want to be paid for that. I don't even need to be paid a third of what I got paid in the private sector to do what I do, which this town desperately needs. You're going to get new people. The question is, what kind of people do you want? Do you want people who want to come here and help build community? Or do you want to get people who come here and bully around the locals with out-of-state money, buy second homes, tax the local infrastructure? Search and rescue has to protect those houses you build. Your water infrastructure, your communications, your power infrastructure has to support those structures that people are using to profit and export the wealth of this community. One thing that I've witnessed in a lot of the small communities I've been in is The ones that went south didn't institute an Airbnb tax quick enough. Institute an Airbnb tax. Tax the people that aren't here year-round, that are utilizing your infrastructure. I know time is short, so there's one other thing I wanted to say. Since I've gotten here, I've been displaced twice within 7 months. If you think that raising property tax is not going to affect renters or is not going to be passed along, let me put it this way. There is no housing shortage in Moab. There never has been. There's enough housing for everybody that lives and works here. What there is there is an excess of greed. And these are the people that come in with out-of-state money and develop and export the wealth. And these are the big businesses. I came here to live and work. I'm camping. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a first-timer too. I've lived here for a long, long time. I do have a small business here. I was raised here. We've raised our kids here. I guess I'm living under a hole because I had no idea the salaries that the council is making. It about floored me. My dad was on council many years ago, and it was not even a drop in the bucket. Anyway, I'm here to say that and for my family, we don't support a new tax. We absolutely don't support a new tax. And like the people who have talked before, every year it's something. The recreation tax was supposed to go to arts, recreation, all that kind of stuff. It went into the general fund. You give money here and there, but it's not. I mean, I agree with so many things that are said here. I don't understand where the mismanagement of funds come. I know it's expensive to live here. I've lived here for over 60 years. But it's not that expensive. There are so many things. I honestly think we can tighten our budget. We can sharpen our pencils, guys. I agree we can get creative. The tourism tax, holy cow, we don't need to spend all the money to get tourists. They're here. We don't need to send the Europeans brochures about Moab. They know. I work in a hotel all summer. They're here. You see them on the street. You go to City Market and half the people don't even speak English. They're here. We can get creative with the budget. I know you guys can do it. You're smart people. I know most of you guys. Please, no new taxes. All my family is in support of no new taxes. You say that renters are not going to get hurt by people raising. That's so not true. They're going to pass that on. I own a small little preschool. My taxes go up. I try to keep it so affordable. Some of you guys have had your kids in my preschool. So affordable. My taxes go up. Guess what? I have to pass that on. Rick and I together with 4 jobs do not make what you guys make sitting here today. Not even 4 jobs. Please don't raise taxes. We just came through a pandemic. People in Moab are getting back on their feet. I know you guys can do it. I have faith in you. There's been a lot of people who say you've lost their trust in Moab. I'm beginning to wonder, but I know you guys can do it. I know you can. You're smart people. Figure it out. Let other people help you if you can't figure it out. Please, no new taxes. That's all.
Thank you. Next. Welcome, Lacey. No. Nope. Okay. Welcome.
Man, I'm glad it's not me behind those seats. I can feel it, but thank you guys for your service.
How does it feel over there?
It feels wonderful.
Does it?
Just a couple things I want to say is, I wish you guys, or I would hope that you guys would just talk to some of the local citizens and just listen to what they're trying to say. I know when we were trying to build our hotel, and I know there is some people that don't think locals live here that own a hotel, there is. And my family goes to school here. My kids go. I love this community, and I have devoted all my time to this community. But I want you guys to know that when we were trying to build our hotel, we tried to build the infrastructure up because we could see that there was problems coming. We told them we would put in a brand new sewer system. We bought the sewer system. It sat out there by Archway Inn for years. We already had it all bought. They didn't listen to us. They wouldn't let us do it. But now you guys are paid for the new sewer plant, and I appreciate you. But I want you guys to know that I appreciate you, but I do not want this tax. I've got 3 renters that I know they're not going to like it when I send the bill to them, because I've already told them if this goes through in 2 months, it's the taxes. I'm going to have to raise their rent. So I appreciate you. I'm glad it's you guys, and woo-hoo. I did 8 years, and I'm done. So thank you guys for stepping up to the plate.
Thank you. Thanks for, oh, you gotta sign your name, even though we all know you, but. Thank you so much for your comment. Who's next? Thank you. Welcome. Hi.
My name is Trish West. I've lived here since 1962. My husband used to come to these meetings regularly as the police chief here for 20, however long he was, 13 years, retired. And I remember when budget time came around, it was like, I don't know if we can get $100 for these guys. I worry about it. They're not going to be making much. Every year he fretted and stewed and fought with the council to support his officers. When I hear the salaries that you guys are making, I want to just go, what happened? I know you're not, but I consoled myself by saying, well, they've come to realize that to have good working city, they've got to pay good people good money. They've come around and they figured it out. So all those years that those guys that were doing the police work, who were doing good jobs, you know, they were kind of overlooked, but they kind of laid the groundwork. And I think we can thank Winder for really shining a light on how poorly paid the police department was. Unfortunately, he took the money and ran, and he left us here with a mess. It just started, in my opinion, to say everybody needs to be making what Winder makes. Hey, the city recorder, he's got a gig. I'll just go down to San Juan County. I don't know how all that happened, but it was not on the up and up, I would say. Having the history I have with this community and the council and the processes, the mayors that have been here, the mayors that have left, and all of it, you guys got too big for your britches and we're being asked to pay for it. We had to grow to get to a certain point. That's how kids grow, that's how kids learn. This community just took a giant step and we weren't ready for it. You got to go back to the basics. You got to come and figure out, like you were told, you're smart people. We're paying you the big bucks for smart people. Quit using consultants. Quit going out of house to get this. Figure it out. Listen to the people who live here and want to stay here and raise their families. We don't need someone from Park City telling us. We don't need someone from Boulder telling us what Moab needs. We need Moab telling us what Moab needs. And I'm frankly tired of not being considered as part of this community just because I haven't been here every week or I don't write letters to the editor. I live here, I pay taxes, I shop in the stores, I try to buy local. I just am sad for Moab. You guys, eat a little humble pie. Maybe across the board cut might be warranted for some positions. I don't know how many managers there are and directors on your staff. I know with title comes prestige, but I don't see the output. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Thanks for your time and your attention. I know this is difficult. I guess I had a bunch to read, but I think what I keep hearing and what ran through my mind is about proportionality. I know, looking at these graphs, that the business community will pay 59% of the tax as this whole pie goes. But when you look at what some of us make, as far as a living wage in this town, which is questionable, it seems like the services, I don't mind paying taxes, and I wouldn't be against taxes. I pay for services for schools. I don't have kids, but I believe in schools. So I don't mind paying taxes for the services and the resources that I use, but it needs to be proportional. I'm part of 5,000 or 5,400 people. I'm not part of 2 to 3 million people. So I guess my question is what are the proportionality? And I think y'all are kind of stuck, maybe this whole country is stuck into a tax system that does not tax the people that are making the most money from our resources and from our services. They make a lot of money. And so proportionally, they may be paying 59%, but when you look at what I have to live on as a homeowner, it's a lot different. I don't make money off of my water. I don't make money off of anything that I grow food from. I don't make money off the air I breathe. I work for the federal government. I know how tight it is for agencies to have to work, but part of it is the federal government does not collect enough taxes from the people that use and gain the most from our services and our resources. Maybe we all need to rethink this, but definitely proportionality comes to mind when I see what proportion of my wages would go to this versus the proportion of somebody that makes huge profits off the tourist industry. Yes, it has brought jobs, but not jobs that are sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who's next? Welcome.
Hello. You all know me, but if people don't, I'm Kaya Marienfeld. I am also the chair of the Moab City Planning Commission, full disclosure. That's not exactly coloring my comments tonight, but I think it probably does provide a perspective on the things that, at least from my position, I see as the bigger needs for funding and infrastructure right now. I know there's a lot of criticism, and I can't speak to that about salaries and staffing and everything within the city right now. I do think maybe more disclosure and more transparency is warranted. I think because it's taxpayer money that's paying people's salaries, it's a time when maybe it's uncomfortable, but there's maybe a broader look that needs to be taken. I do think, however, there are huge needs in the realm of staffing and resources. I know there was a previous commenter, I don't remember who noted that we need the support to make it easier to build affordable housing. That was something that got brought up, I think, a few times. I see the need on a every other week basis at planning commission meetings, and then in the interim that the planning staff and public works are trying to do the most, I think, with less when it comes to a lot of the departments. I think there's a huge need to devote more resources to that. I'm not someone who's going to stand here and be opposed to a property tax in general. I think the timing is really unfortunate. You know, there are a lot of things that past councils unfortunately pass the buck on down the road that you all are saddled with right now, where it's gotten to a critical point. This might be one of them. I think the timing is terrible with the city and with the county. You know, this is obviously not you, but I know you're in close contact with the county as well on all of these issues. But, you know, maybe the county should be considering lowering the tax that they're assessing, because they had over 5 million what they expected last year, to sort of spread things out a little bit so that the city can take a small bit from the property tax pool in a way that isn't as impactful on residents that live within the city. Obviously, that's not you, but if that can be a part of the discussion at all, you know, allow the city to impose a small tax. And then one question, you know, I think we do need, there are things we desperately need. I liked really a lot what Rachel Stenta mentioned about if we're taxing something, if we're taxing residents, which is what this inevitably does, we need whatever money is being collected from that tax to directly go to resident services. I agree completely about infrastructure and probably being infrastructure only from the outset on this one. I think that's something that everyone probably agrees on, and I think it would be an easy way to make sure that we're doing the most what we can with the littlest that we have from the outset. And a quick question, what is the biggest discount in a property tax that can be given to residents? Is the 45% that's currently proposed the biggest you can possibly give?
From what I understand.
Yeah, okay, because that would be, I mean, if we could give 100% discount to residents and still levy a property tax, I think that would satisfy everyone, but, yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Who's next? And are people standing outside that want to come inside? Can we do a check? Will you all help me? Nobody's out there? Everyone's fine? Thank you so much.
Hello, appreciate you
welcome.
being here. My name's Dan Vink. I work for a large corporation here in town, and I've hired many people over the last 7 years, and I struggle, even the wages that I pay for our company, on bringing people in because of the cost of living. My company powers 7 states in the area, and I'll hire them in, and they leave due to the cost of living, and we pay pretty well, but there's a lot of other places out there that are more affordable to raise their families, and so I do oppose increasing property tax, because you do hurt people trying to come in and, live and make a decent wage and raise their family, and it's really tough to hire and bring people in when there's so many other places that the cost of living is quite a bit cheaper. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Who's next? Are we done? No, we're not done. I heard somebody asking a question, but I don't know where it came from. Did you want to?
I would just like to add one comment briefly, if I may, but up to you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. My name is Justin Kozinza. My wife and I are the owners of Moab Diner. I oppose the increase of this property tax because you guys have shown that it's very clear that you want to push out tourism, and it's our only industry we have. And you want to bring in new industry, which is great. My views on tourism are different than yours. But I do agree that the diversification of Moab and Grand County's economy would benefit everybody in the long run. However, you need to make Moab inviting for these new industries, especially if you're trying to push out the only industry we have. If you look at the current climate in Moab, there is a housing crisis, as everybody's mentioned, that has led to a depleted workforce. I can't hire people, and that has increased wage cost, so it's expensive to do business in town. We don't have enough workers for the businesses we have right now. And then increasing the property tax only makes Moab less inviting for new industries. I believe a vote for this increase only further shows that you have no plans to diversify our economy and only want to use taxation to make up for the loss of tourism income as you try to push them out. So I think we just need to make it inviting for people to come here. It's expensive to do business here. It's expensive to live here. You guys have job openings. You can't fill them because they don't have houses. So I just think we need to have a plan for the future, and just taxing the locals and the businesses isn't the way to do it. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Randy Martin. Moved to Moab 22 years ago. We live at 339 McGill. Just a couple random thoughts, and I know I'm late to the party here tonight, and maybe you've heard some of this stuff already, but my first thought is the infrastructure bill that's before the U.S. Congress right now. My understanding is this property tax increase is to pay for 2 things. 1 is police, 2 is infrastructure. $1 trillion infrastructure bill before the Congress. Some of its money, hopefully, knock on wood, will find its way to Moab. Okay, so my thought is, should we be looking at a tax increase at this time if some of this infrastructure bill money is going to find its way to Moab to help pay for the infrastructure projects? So that's my first thought. Second thought is, in regards to the police, I saw a job posting in the Times Independent for a safety specialist for the city of Moab. So I went to the job online at the city website, the organizational chart, just to see if this was a new position or if it was an existing position. Looked to me like it's a new position, okay? No, Okay, scratch that. Number 3. My thought was if it's a new position, why are we adding head count when we
Yeah.
actually need police?
It's a
Okay.
required position.
Okay, got it. Number 3, the county, as Kaya reported a few minutes ago, $5 million windfall from this spring, right, in tax revenue. I haven't heard how much of a windfall the city has received, but can some of that money be used to offset a property tax increase? So those are my thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing your comments and coming in tonight.
My mom left her glasses.
Thank you for your comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Lonnie Campbell. So I had a bunch of numbers to bring tonight, but at about 5 o'clock last night, I got a text that the budget was amended for the previous year, and the numbers I had now changed. So that kind of led me to this. If we can't get our budget from last year figured out, why are we asking for more money for the following year? We need to have budgets actually something that we can look through and see what's going on. I mean, I spent all weekend going through last year's budget. There are so many things on there that just glare at you as being wrong, or just not wrong, but probably not being accounted for properly. I don't think it's fair to ask for more money if you can't show us where you've spent money. So that's
You're
what
welcome to comment on those items in the budget that you...
I don't have them with me because it all changed last night, sometime yesterday. That's another thing, to change a budget that we're talking about within 24 hours. Is that correct? Did you upload a different budget?
So I believe the budget you're speaking to is regarding the tentative budget was uploaded and
Tentative
a
and
proposed
last-
final budget. So those tentative numbers should have been still
I
included
think
in
the
the budget that
actuals
was
from
adjusted yesterday.
2020 to 2021 changed also.
Yeah, I mean, as a new budget is uploaded, so those are year-to-date actuals, and so the year-to-date actuals have been updated as time
Regardless,
progresses.
numbers were changed, information we had was changed. It does seem that maybe it's not fair to be asking for proposed taxes for items that it's not really transparent. So that's what I have.
Thank you for your comments. Maybe we can come back with some clarity on the budget numbers as they are updated. Thank you. Who's next? Becky?
I sent you my comments via email.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Paige, absolutely.
Contrary to what most people in this town think, there are businesses who are in no way related to tourism. My husband's business has been here since 1972 and earlier. It's a holdover from the mining business, but it's a going concern, and it brings in a lot of tax revenue to this city. It's in the city limits. Taxing businesses at 100%, just because you think that it's somehow related to the tourists and therefore that you're going to get revenue from the tourists because of that, is in error. There are plenty of businesses. Pam's Daycare, for instance, that affects every one of our families who bring children to her daycare. That is an unfair tax when you just consider that, well, let's just tax all the businesses at 100%. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those additional comments. Mr. Lima? Well, we're not really doing questions, so it's a public hearing, so you're welcome to make comments.
Okay.
Yep.
My comment again. So on the figures of the budget that was uploaded on April, and then there was the budget uploaded yesterday. The total salaries and wages in the budget that was uploaded in April was $3.8 million. Now the salaries and wages are $5.6 million. He's saying that's an added increase for the year to date. So that's a 3-month difference, and that's a 49% increase. So half of your salaries and wages happened in the last 3 months.
I So because we're in a public hearing, I want to appreciate your comment, and we'll direct staff to answer those questions. Thank you. Who else? Joe? Lori? Anyone? Otherwise, we can take a temperature of those in the hall.
Do you want one of us to go out?
Good. Okay. So this, I will just let us sit for just a moment, if anyone else would like to come up and speak. Okay. If there's no others, would you like to go speak?
No, I had a question for you, but I'll wait till you want a question.
No, go ahead. Is it
my question is, public hearing, the way they're set up, people come, speak, ask questions, as opposed to like a town hall where we interface
Correct.
more and answer questions. Did you at this meeting, or did you want to wait till our next council meeting? Because there definitely was
Next
a number of
council meeting.
questions and a number of
Absolutely.
facts thrown out
Yeah.
that seemed wrong. So
Yes,
yeah, okay, thanks.
yes, absolutely, yeah. I think it'll be good for us as a council and staff to digest all of the comments that were made for our next meeting, absolutely. Okay, unless there are any others that wish to speak, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second?
Second. I second, please.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Our public hearing is closed, and do I need a motion to adjourn the meeting? I do.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned.